What's up, everybody? Welcome into another Big Man on Campus college football preview video. We are taking a look at the Army-Navy game in Philadelphia, December 14, 2019. We'll break it down for you in just a second. Joe, you and I coming off of a fun conference championship week. We did 3 videos here, and I want to go over all 3. Okay, we gave out Baylor. That one came in. You gave out Oregon. That came in. They actually won the game outright. And we gave up Memphis in the under. That came in, or Cincinnati in the under. That came in as well. Clean sweep here on the videos. How you doing, Joe?
I am, Jeff, and actually I did go 2-1 with my premium picks in the conference championship games. They were all on totals, and a very good day Sunday in the NFL with that Sunday night game pending. But yeah, another great week at Joe Duffy's picks at offshoreinsiders.com for sure.
Great work, Joe. We're taking a look at the Army-Navy game coming up this Saturday, December 14th in Philadelphia. Philadelphia's been the home of the Army-Navy game for a while. Joe, interesting series. You look at over the last 3 seasons, Army has won this game. Up until then, Navy had won it 14 years in a row. If you remember a couple years ago, that snow game, I believe that was the game that Army first won. They've obviously done it 3 straight games. You look at 7 of the last 8 Army-Navy games have been decided by 10 points or less. And you look at this year, kind of an interesting game because Navy's been the better team all year. It's been a down year for Jeff Monken's crew. They lost Jay Bateman, their defensive coordinator, and defense didn't look their usual selves all year. They had a poor stretch throughout the season where I think they lost 5 or 6 in a row. And up until the last game of the season, Joe, they had an opportunity to get to a bowl game. They weren't able to get to it after a 52-31 loss out at Hawaii. It was a tough year for Army. Navy, on the other hand, was really just 1 or 2 plays away from going to the American title game. They'll actually finish out the season in a couple of weeks in the Liberty Bowl. They'll face, I didn't end up rating their opponent, Kansas State, I believe. So they have another game. But this is a Super Bowl game for Army. Nothing to really play for. We always know that these 2 teams are always going to bring it when they play each other. It's just that simple. But I have some questions about Army, and I'm sure you do as well, Joe. Will Calvin Hopkins play? He's been hampered with injuries all season, the quarterback for for Army. You also look at Malcolm Perry, who I think we can both agree, Joe, is the best player on the field. Yeah. Anytime he plays, he's going to be one of the best players out there. I just look at Navy and I say, well, we know they can offer a passing game at some point. They've really wrinkled that into this offense this year. And, defensively, they're pretty damn good. But this is a pretty simple one for me, Joe. If this one's over 10, I'm going to look towards the underdog. I just am. Is this a game, though, that ends up, 31-13? What do you think here, Joe?
Yeah, Jeff, this is one of the tougher games. Although as a general rule of thumb, and in fact, quite a few systems that are pretty good, big underdogs in games in which the odds makers tell you is going to be low scoring are always good plays. And of course, it makes perfect sense because points are going to be tough to come by. So therefore, the 10.5 points is a lot more than 10.5 points in, say, Baylor, Oklahoma, or a game where there's going to be 65, 70 points scored. Navy's been a tremendous team to bet on based on the so-called sweat barometer or margin of cover, as I called it before somebody renamed it years ago. They're number 2 team in the country, 8-3 ATS, but covering by an average of 9.1 points per game. While Army's been a pretty good go against, 5-7 against the spread, minus 2.8. Now, Navy is also the number 3 over team in the country, going over by an average of 8.6 points per game. However, surprising offenses based on delta points scored. Now, I'll explain it very quickly. Let's say you got a total of 30. The favorite's favorite by 10. So therefore, the implied points scored would be the favorite 30 and the underdog 10. Well, surprising offenses based on exceeding those delta points scored would apply to Navy here. 874, 720, and 38 goes under, actually. So, again, a little bit of, use that term again, regression in the mean. Offenses that have overachieved based on the odds makers' expectations are actually pretty good underplays. What's remarkable, this series is going under 13 straight. Of course, both of these teams like to keep the ball on the ground. But All in all, despite what I said about my natural inclination is to go with big underdogs in games in which points are expected to be tough to come by. Favorites in triple revenge are 653, 555, and 24. And I really think that Navy, after losing the last three games, they really like to win this game big time. You did talk about Malcolm Perry. And again, he can really take out Elijah Riley, maybe Army's best player on defense. He's a pro prospect, but he's at defensive back. But the fact that Navy has the best running quarterback in the league, and he doesn't really have to throw the ball to Riley's side, can kind of make him a little bit less of a factor. I just think that Navy's going to be able to grind it out. And like I said, the odds makers say when a team has a chance to take out their frustrations after being dominated recently in the series, they do that. So I'm going to go with Navy here. I guess we are going to clash heads.
Yeah, it's so tough. I don't know if I'll be betting this game. Really an interesting kind of look at things, though, and I do want to bring this up. You look at the Naval Academy this year, in two games where you have a more of a run-first team, Air Force, Tulane, both those teams gave Navy trouble. Navy won that game against Tulane by 3, and then they went ahead and beat Air Force by 9. But two games where, you look at the opponent and it was more of a running team. It was kind of a closer game than maybe advertised. It's a tough one, though. I definitely hear your point. Interesting weather forecast, Joe. 55 and showers. Definitely odd. Again, we're still 6 days out, so weather could change. But you could have some rain in South Philadelphia on Saturday. Which again, the total at 42, I think our general inclination is always to, bet this game low. But as you said, Navy, a big play offense. This is not, Joe, a vintage Army defense. It just isn't. You know what? I'm going to come out and say it. I'm going over 42. I think this is going to find its way over the number. Whenever I can get Navy at that number, Navy could score 40 themselves. I don't think it's out of the question. And again, this is just not a vintage Army team. They've not been good. We get 24-21. We get a winner here. 21, 25, something like any score in the 20s, I think is going to get our score over here. So I'm going to lean over. It's a tough game. I get your thought process there. Just remember, 7 of the last 8 in this series divided by 10 or less. Keep in mind, though, over the last 5 years or so, this is probably the worst Army team. Joe, any thoughts on that total?
Well, it's interesting you would say that, Jeff, because I don't generally look that far ahead when it comes to weather. But one of the things that I've observed, if there is precipitation but very low winds, and then the line drops, the total drops, it's always good to fade that line drop because it's not so much its winds that I think really affect scoring in a negative way. Not so much precipitation if there aren't really high winds. So I will say if precipitation without winds brings the total down, that makes the total much stronger indeed. So, yeah, I'm going to keep a very close eye on that weather. I was going to take a look at it anyway this far out. I usually don't, but if this total does drop because of the rain and it says, only 8-mile winds, it might make the over a pretty good play.
Yeah, I think a lot of people overreact when it comes to rain. Yeah. It's really wind and snow and that kind of thing that can make it worse. Rain's not too bad. Keep in mind, though, this is a total that I would wait on. Public's going to come in and bet this under. Yeah. And that's just what they do in this kind of game. Plus, the weather is not going to help. We might get this total at 40, 39. A fucking NFL total in a college game.
Yeah, there's no question that the total very well could drop because, like I said, the public knows that these two teams are running teams. They'll look at the series stats. I would not be surprised if the total drops. And again, especially if when it gets a little closer to game time, if it still looks like it's going to rain, the total will almost definitely drop.
One other thing I wanted to point out as well, we talked about this is not a vintage
Yeah.
Army defense. You look at last week, 52 points they gave up to the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Hawaii had 359 passing yards in that game. Don't be surprised if Ivan Jasper and Ken Niumatalolo open this offense up and throw the football. This is a team that's added a wrinkle in it. I read an article out of the Navy paper that covers them. I think it's called the Capital Tribune or something like that. They wrote an article early in the season, 3 or 4 weeks in, about Malcolm Perry and his real interest in throwing the football. They've improved it significantly. They've become a little bit more frequent with throwing the ball in the season. And I think that's something that we might be able to build on in a game like this. This is, again, an Army defense that has had trouble all year. And you look at Perry, over 1,000 yards passing this year, which, with 6 passing touchdowns, that's not a normal Navy stat line. Usually it's, 600 yards passing. They've liked to throw the ball a little bit more, and they have plenty of playmakers. This is a game I'm going to bet over the total. I will wait on it, though, as I think it will come down throughout the week. Joe Duffy going to go with Navy minus 10.5. I'm going to go with the over 42. Joe Duffy, great stuff. I'm sure we'll get to some bowl games with you. Those are already starting to come out. Any early thoughts? Did you have a chance to look at the bowl games yet? You don't need to give us any pick or anything, but the first bowl game, December 20th, it is the Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl. Now, Joe, the worst beat I've ever had as a sports bettor was in the Bahamas Bowl in 2014, I believe. West Kentucky, Central Michigan. I'm sure you remember that one.
I do.
You got a weird game here, Charlotte and Buffalo. 2 great American cities, and those two will go at it first here. Joe, before we go, let's get a plug for your website. You've done a great job all season with your plays over at offshoreinsiders.com. Tell us more.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Obviously, we're recording this a little earlier in the week, so what type of football? Of course, there's only Army, Navy this week, but I'm going to be taking a look at the bowls all week. Been very good in basketball, especially the NBA, where I got some total systems that kind of the basic theory overlaps from sport to sport. They've been great. This is my, 30, going on 32 years in the business. Joe Duffy's picks at offshoreinsiders.com.
Great work, Joe. Doing a great job in all sports. Glad to hear it. That's it. Army, Navy. Make sure you check this one out on Saturday, December 14th. Joe Duffy going with Navy minus 10.5. I'll take the over 42. As always, make sure you check out all the videos. If you're new around here, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. We will see you during the bowl season. Have a great night. Thanks, Joe.
All right, Jeff.